Hey everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I know this video has been long overdue. This is the story of my 1965 Ford Mustang. It is a very hot and sunny day here in Manila, so pardon me if I need this face towel to wipe my face because of the sweat. It started when I was a kid with this toy. So this is a die-cast metal toy that I got when I was a kid. This isn't exactly the same model. I think this is a 67 fastback, similar to the Eleanor. Yes, this is a 1967 Shelby GT500. So this isn't the same because this is a 65 Ford Mustang Coupe. But nevertheless, I got this when I was a kid, and ever since then, this became one of my dreams. You know, growing up, I was surrounded by a family who has a deep appreciation for vehicles. Both my parents worked as car salesmen. So you could imagine I grew up in a household surrounded by cars. I always hear about the newest, latest cars, and it was a childhood dream of mine to own a vintage car. And fast forward to 2017, I was working in a show called La Luna Sangre. And I was getting paid na. So I already had my own savings, and praise God, I had a lot of work at that time. And it was at that time when vintage vehicles started to become a trend again. I would see them all over the internet, especially the Facebook groups that I am part of. So I was on the set of the show that we were doing. You know, when you go on your Facebook and you see the closest advertisements, parang the advertisements near you, and I guess the algorithm worked in my favor, and I saw one car that was being sold just a couple of streets away. I think we were at 9th Street in New Manila, QC, and the car that was listed, a 1965 Ford Mustang, was at a house down 3rd Street. So it literally was only 2-3 minutes away. And I messaged the seller to check it out during my downtime at work. One of those days I just went there and I was introduced to the owner of actually a lot of cars. He is a car enthusiast. I remember sa labas pa ng bahay there were first-gen Pajeros. Then I went inside and saw the garage and there were 2 Mustangs. One of them was a 1965 white Ford Mustang Coupe. Then the other one was a 1965 or 6 black fastback. So dalawa sila. The other one was in actually really good shape, the black one, the fastback. The other one was an unfinished project. That was the car that was listed for sale. So I spoke to him, I checked out the car, and what surprised me the most, I would say 40% completed, especially the interior, because when he opened that door, the interior was pristine. It was already like almost there. Ang ganda na nung pagka-restore. The seats were installed, the linings, the carpet was okay na. Practically, the interior had just a bit of work to do na lang. Pero the rest was in bad shape. The body was in bad shape. Paint wasn't done. Kulang-kulang yung parts sa labas. And at that time, I remember you could start it, but you couldn't really run it. I had my dad check it also, and eventually we ended up purchasing the car. And that was the beginning of our journey with the 1965 Mustang. So the restoration process, medyo matagal for us. Hindi namin siya minadali. We didn't want to go to those very reputable car restoration places na kasi, well, actually we inquired, but it was very expensive. Cost almost like a car na. So we decided to take on the restoration slow. We just wanted to enjoy the process. So my dad, as I said earlier, knows a lot about cars. So he knows basic mechanical work. So he started working on the car. Then we also brought it to several shops, so on and so forth, na umabot siya a little over 2 years. So I got the car 2017, we finished it, I think, end of 2019. So ang tagal. And one of the things we learned along the way is that you don't really have to rush it. Number one, you have to enjoy it. Naging bonding experience namin siya ng dad ko. One of the things that we're very, very proud of. hear that? You hear that? That's the sound of pure muscle, baby. Tara, take it for a spin. Alright, you guys. So, this is it. I'm driving the Mustang. Kung mapapansin nyo, medyo maingay because maingay talaga siya. Vintage cars like this one doesn't really have good soundproofing simply because they didn't do well before. Wala pa masyado ng technology to make cars quiet. And like I was saying kanina, this has a very big engine. So even from the inside, you could hear its rumble like this. That's how it sounds. So for those of you curious on the driving experience of this Mustang, by the way guys, naka-seatbelt ako So ang daming nagre-react din kung ba't walang seatbelt. Ganito lang ang seatbelt dati. So ito lang yung configuration niya, parang airplane. So this is how seatbelts were back in the 60s. So naka-seatbelt ako guys. Going back to what I was saying earlier, the driving experience of this car, it's very chill. It's a very easy car to drive, especially to automatic. So you just literally gas and go. You definitely do not want to drive like a crazy man when you drive this car because it's hard to lose control of a car like this, yung ganito kaluma. So relax lang, chill driving lang. And dun mo ma-enjoy yung car because it's if you drive it really well, it's such a fun car to drive, just cruising around. So that's the word that I was going for. It's much more of a cruising experience. You just cruise around in your vintage Mustangs. Yun yung ano niya, yun yung feel niya. So would I recommend to purchase a vintage vehicle or restore one? For me, if you have the means to, I'd suggest go for it. Because it's an experience like no other Yung may project ka na ganito, and you really grow a connection with the car. And for my instance, I was able to bond with my dad. So naging ano namin to, naging project car namin. It's something that we loved doing, and it's something that we're definitely proud of. My tip is don't rush it. Look for the one that you connect to the most, and then when you begin your restoration process, be patient. Because yung i-estimate sa'yo na duration of the restoration is not its actual duration, ita times 2 mo yun. Even with budget, guys. It's almost like a fact. I've always heard it while we were restoring this car na kung anong isipin mong budget, times 2 mo yun. At totoo siya. So, yun, don't rush it. And what's nice about it, lalo na kung may pwesto ka naman, may parking ka, kung saan mo mapapark yung car, pwede mo naman unti-untiin. So now I'm just driving around dito sa labas ng village. Ganda ng roads dito. And just like I said kanina, every time we bring this out, we always gas it up. And we're very lucky to have a Caltex just right here. Isa din sa mga important to note is that yung gas ng car mo, when it's vintage, you have to pay a lot of attention to that. And that's why our choice is Caltex, because it has Techron. So it has additives that would make your engine clean and smooth. So our gas of choice for the Mustang is Caltex with Techron. And one thing that I love also about Caltex is that they have a new rewards system, which I will show you guys in a bit. 95 matic lang. While we're waiting, let me talk to you guys about how I gas up here at Caltex. It's super easy nowadays, guys. So they have an app called the Caltex Go, which you could earn Caltex rewards from. So it's super easy now because they bring the terminal to you. So one thing that I love is that you don't have to surrender your credit card so that they can bring it to the cashier. You could do everything here na. At ayan na si Kuya. Speaking of, it's time to use my Caltex rewards. So you generate a QR code. So it says scan the QR code in store. Tapos si Kuya's right here. He's gonna scan it for me. Yun, ganun lang kadali. And then you pay using your credit card. That's simple.
Using my credit card is my preference, but you may also pay using other modes of payment. For every fuel up, you earn Caltex Rewards points, which you can use as fuel payment, or you could redeem your rewards from Caltex partner stores. You earn 1 point for every 2.50 pesos you spend on fuel. You can redeem 100 points for a 1 peso fuel payment or discount. It becomes a cycle of rewarding journeys. So download the Caltex Go app now. So now it's time for that car tour.
This is a 65 model coupe that we restored, and we added the period correct GT accessories to it. So now it's a GT package version of the coupe, which was also sold way back in the 60s. But originally, it's not a GT package Mustang. This used to be white, which we didn't like at all because it looks like a bridal car. So this is what we did with the car. We stripped it all the way to metal, and then I'm not sure yung layers of coating na nilagay here, but I believe there was a 1 point green. Then I asked what that green thing is. Parang ano daw yun, like a base layer para ma-protect siya against rust. Then, of course, hanggang sa mabuo siya into this beautiful gunmetal gray color that we picked. I am a huge fan of silvers and grays, and that's why we wanted to choose this shade of gray in particular, because it looks very elegant, very macho. This hood scoop was added na. So this was added to the restoration. So this is something that you would call a resto mod. Resto mod meaning restored and modified. So hindi siya like a purist type of restoration. Simply because we wanted to make the car our own also. And also these hood pins that you see here. What we added lang here are the fog lamps, I think. These were added and installed. By the way, most of the parts we had shipped from the US. So surprisingly, parts are actually easy to come by, but not here locally. But they're readily available. People still make them because a lot of Americans still own vintage muscle cars like this. This is the front of the car, a very iconic look that really made a statement back in its day. If you watched the film Ford versus Ferrari, isa sa mga scenes dun was when they launched this car. So it made a lot of waves back then, and it inspired a lot of car manufacturers to follow suit with the muscle car design. So let's pop the hood. There we go. Whew! So this bad boy is a 289 engine. So what you're looking at is a 289 engine from Ford. This is an original engine. So we were very lucky that the engine was in pretty good shape. We had to overhaul it pa rin. It wasn't like super broken. So we were able to restore it, and now it runs very, very well. So it's a 289 engine, it's a V8. So lakas sa gas nito. Super lakas sa gas. This is not at all an everyday car that you can just drive around, because back in the day, they didn't care about fuel efficiency. It wasn't necessary for car manufacturers to make fuel-efficient engines. So isang full tank nito, tumatagal lang ng mga 2 araw siguro. So every time we use this on weekends, lagi din pinapagas. So this is really a Sunday car. I personally just really like the look of the engine because it's super old school. If you guys could see the air filter. Edelbrock. This one we ordered na because wasn't included anymore. Okay, so for those of you who don't know what 289 means, nakalagay dito. So 289, yun yung measurement. It's in cubic inches. It's the measurement of the engine. So it translates roughly to around 4,700 cc. So it's a 4.7 liter engine na V8. Kaya siya malakas sa gas. Nowadays, ang 4.7 liters, mga malalaking SUV na yun. Like full, massive size SUVs or trucks. So imagine, this is a really tiny car and it has almost a 5-liter engine that is super powerful. Alright, so this is the side of the car, which is a very iconic silhouette. So coupe siya, which means it's not the fastback version. So you'd know if it's a coupe if it's shaped like this. Difference ng fastback is that this part goes all the way to the trunk, hence the name fastback. It has something to do with the aerodynamics of the car. So yun yung mas sports car version. Then back in the day, this was more of the daily car type. If you guys could notice, actually, one cool thing about the car, and tells you a lot about the history of cars back then. It only has one side mirror, left only. It doesn't have the right one. You could put the right one, but we wanted to stick to the original. Then of course you have your badges here. So originally, wala yung GT badge. So the GT badge is something that we added because we decided to make this Mustang a GT package version. And then of course the Mustang emblem over here. We wanted a stripe, but I didn't want a racing stripe because it wasn't a fastback. And it would look a bit awkward if you have a coupe tapos may racing stripe. So the coupes, what they usually do is that they have this stripe over this entire like skirt area. So we decided to include this stripe, and we chose the color red because it matches the interior, which I'm about to show you now. So this is my favorite part about the car. Almost the entire interior is red. Like it's blood red. Ganda ng finishing, and it's just really a work of art. So come, let's go inside. Like I was saying earlier, this was almost finished when we got the car. We just needed to polish it, pretty much. So when we got the car, the seats were installed, yung lining installed na, everything was installed. So what we had to do na lang was to source out the really small parts that were missing. For example, I think some of the door handles are new. Some of the panels also was kulang, so we purchased them. And then yung matting, we added these floor mats. And then this one's new also. So it came with a non-working radio. And there is a company called Retro Sound that made old-looking radios but with new technology. So this is one of them. This has all the new tech that you need but housed in a vintage-looking radio para bagay pa rin siya, hindi siya out of place. This is the cockpit basically. Very simple. Definitely nothing like the modern cars that we have now. The steering wheel is thin but it's big. That's one of the things that I noticed right away. Ang laki nung steering wheel. So this is how they used to make it. And then this also has the rally pack. This one came na. It already came with the car when we got it. This usually came in the higher trim models back in the day. It was an option if you wanted it. So yung RPM is displayed here. And then of course the dash, this is a mix of new and old gauges na because the others were defective. So kung papansin nyo, yung luma na lang yung speedometer and itong ampere gauge. The rest, bago siya tingnan kasi bago siya. The temp, oil, and fuel gauges are already new because it's broken. So, syempre we wanted a functional car, that's why we replaced them. But the speedometer is intact and working. If you could see the mileage, it's at 814,000, which we're not sure if it's accurate or it was messed around with na. Obviously, it's hard to tell the actual mileage of the car because this car has been through a lot. And then this car has aircon. Not exactly sure if this was original with the car, but it is an original and period correct aircon. I think this was an option offered especially in Asia back in the day kasi we don't have a cold climate compared to the Western countries. Pero dati walang aircon yung mga sasakyan, but this one has one. This even has a heater which is not working, and we didn't want to restore the heater na kasi hindi mo naman gagamitin yung heater. But the aircon's working. It's very cold, surprisingly. It was working from day one. And then this is an automatic. I know most of you are gonna say, ay sayang, ano siya, automatic siya, hindi siya manual. So what? It's an automatic. I wanted the car. I felt the connection with it, and it's originally an automatic, which is also not a hassle, at least when you drive this car. I'm not a race car driver. I'm not a purist, hindi ko naman siya pang kakarera, hindi ko siya pang the drag race. So I don't really need the manual. Of course, it would be nice because the manual has a higher value compared to the automatic, but so what? I'm happy with it. It's an automatic. It runs well, runs very smoothly, and you don't have to worry about switching gears. Manual cars before is not the same as manual cars now. Kasi manual cars now, you have automatic rev matching, you have all the technology. Dati, wala, bare bones. And kailangan mo talagang tutukan yung maintenance ng mga manual cars before. So, okay na ako sa automatic. I'm good. So, those that are hating the transmission of this car, whatevs. I'm happy with it. Itong seat na to is foldable so that one could access the back. The back is very small. If you're tall, baka ikaw lang, isa lang ang kasya sa loob. I wouldn't say this is a 4-seater because yung mga nasa likod hindi na comfy. But it's still nice to have these seats sa likod. Of course, for safety, got a fire extinguisher, which is also in red, just like the rest of the interior. And then, ito, may ashtray. So, dati, cigarette smoking at that time was very popular back in the 60s. So, ashtrays were included talaga in the vehicles back then. Rear view mirror is still original. It has the day and night configurations para hindi ka masilaw. So, the door, iba siya. How you open the door is ganito, pahila. Pahila ng ganyan. And then of course you don't have power windows, you have manual windows. Tapos here are the rest of the stuff or the features of the car. You have a lighter which is working, by the way. So ang cool, diba? Cool nung design niya before. And this is the ignition. Tapos may wiper and then your lights. So this is the rear part of the car. Modifications were also done to this area of the car. First are the mufflers. So yung non-GT package only has a single muffler exhaust setup. So this now has a dual exhaust setup with sound modifiers. So we went with the old school cherry bombs as the sound modifiers of the car. I know the name sounds funny, pero that's an attachment to the muffler system para mas malalim yung sound niya. Cherry bombs are actually very old na. There are a lot of new technologies that you could actually even switch on and off. Pwedeng malakas, pwedeng tahimik, but we stuck to its time period. Yung dapat sa kanya ay luma din. So we went with the cherry bombs, which you would hear naman later when we start the car. And one cool thing about the Ford Mustang is that its gas tank is here. So yan yung gas tank. It's the emblem itself. The trunk is wala, nothing fancy. It's just a normal trunk. Medyo makalat. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So this side is pretty much the same, except yun nga, no side mirror. Tapos you have an old school antenna that works. And then meron din kaming dinagdag na side scoops to the side. So these are added na rin. Only for aesthetic. These were medyo hard to find. These are the BF Goodrich radial TAs. So these are the period correct tires that they used back in the day. Very old school. Kitang-kita yung text. White talaga yung branding niya. So it gives you the vintage muscle car feel na parang track vehicle yung dating. So that's pretty much it, guys. That has been the story of my 1965 Mustang. Now I'm all fueled up. I'm ready to go. We might just go on a joyride. Maybe just go and get some coffee right before we go home. And I hope this was an inspiration for my fellow car enthusiasts watching right now, that this little boy who once dreamed of having his own vintage car was able to get one. So dreams do come true, guys. Make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos, and I'll see you on the next one, guys. Let's go. Bye.